You're watching the Isaiah Factor Uncensored.
And welcome back to the second half hour of the Factor Uncensored. Gas prices have lost their damn mind, and we are hearing and trying to make sense of it while going broke to get around the damn corner. My next guest breaks down all of the prices that may send some of you to the pawn shop to keep up with these skyrocketing prices. Take a look.
The frustration is that some of this problem is self-created, right? And we can argue the environmental impacts or employment prospects of Keystone XL, but we know that that would have brought around $1 million or barrels worth of oil to Texas Gulf Coast refineries per day that otherwise are not being harvested. Now, again, environmentalists are happy that those tar sands aren't being brought down, but we thought that maybe rail car transport would happen, but those projects simply stopped. So that's 1 million barrels per day of oil that we could be accessing that isn't there. And the U.S. is the world's largest refiner, followed closely by China and Russia. So our policy interactions are impacting that relationship.
And is that the only impact that we're seeing out there, though? We know there's a war going on, there's inflation. So what are some of the other reasons why we're seeing these high gas prices?
Well, we know that people wanted to rush back to normalcy, which means returning to the office. We were doing the work. So when we say return to work, that's a little misleading. But while courtroom proceedings and even medical diagnosis and visits were being done remotely, some jobs have to be done in person. Your local server and bartender can't bring you drinks at your house, or that's a delivery service. Mm-hmm. So those people have to return to the office. And of course, these fuel prices are disproportionately affecting low-income people. So while academics like myself love higher prices in theory because it forces people to consider their trips, people who have to go to a place of employment, whether that's cleaning a hotel or again serving bars or food at a restaurant, they're going to be hit hard. But that also has increased demand. So that return to normalcy sees our Houston traffic increasing exponentially. Every day you're in some new traffic jam that you really didn't experience during the shutdowns. Additionally, of course, the conflict in Ukraine. We know that the largest proven oil reserves are with Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Canada, and Iran. Well, two of those parties, we have sanctions on, Venezuela and Iran. And then Saudi Arabia is the de facto head of OPEC, that cartel controlling oil prices. So they have a vested interest in this reduced oil capacity and the increased demand to kind of squeeze the U.S. economy in this sense. And of course, when we think about fuel usage, recognize that military vehicles are designed to protect the occupants. So they're heavy, they use more fuel. Somebody cited the Doomsday plane flying over the U.S. the other day. Well, we're going to have vehicles, aircraft, and tanks all practicing and doing maneuvers. They're using some of this fuel from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. But again, when we think about policy decisions and we hear that we're going to release 30 million barrels, well, in November, we released 50 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and that's barely 3 days worth of daily usage amounts for the U.S.
So what steps should be taken now in order to get this price down? If 30 million barrels won't do it, what will?
Right. Well, I'm kind of going to echo Jimmy McMillan out of New York and say the fuel is too darn high. So we might need a political party that just champions that one issue. But as we move forward, we need to look at these other domestic production rights that we have. We need to assure our domestic energy producers that the administration going forward after the Ukrainian conflict is resolved, that we will not punish them. There's been a lot of fear about ramping up production now for fear that they'll have to shut it down later, and businesses are there to maximize profit. So when we look at these market forces, those economic factors impacting the demand for, availability of, and price of commodities such as petroleum, we've got to look at our policies and say, okay, are we going to be anti-oil, or are we just going to be pro-sustainability? And they don't have to be mutually exclusive. And today we need to release at least 100 million barrels from that Strategic Petroleum Reserve purely for U.S. markets. The 60 million barrels they're talking about releasing in conjunction with other countries is nice, but that's not going to benefit the 400 million barrels per day or year of use in Texas.
And one other point you brought up earlier that I want to explore just a little bit, where you see gas prices in the more working class, the lower income areas at the corner gas stations are way higher than the suburbs or the burbs out there. Why is that?
Well, it's supply and demand. In lower income markets, just like the price of food is higher at a convenience store, and we've seen food deserts in lower income areas, we know that people with lower incomes can't travel further to get a better price. They need to maximize every penny of their wage, and so they're going to go to the closest, most convenient place. Also, many times with hourly workers, which predominate those lower income communities, it's time sensitive. When you and I need to get to work, we can be 10, 20 minutes late and no one cares. But if you've got to clock in, you've got to be right on time. So the convenience of a local gas station is sort of the offset for that price. So that corner store is able to essentially engage in legal price gouging because we don't have a declared state of emergency.
Wow. That doesn't sound really fair, does it?
No, sir.
All right, Doc. All right, Doctor. Always good to see you. We appreciate your time here on The Factor Uncensored.